Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. If you follow BC politics, you know that last week the BC NDP government passed transformative legislation on housing with limited debate on the bills, much to the outrage of the three opposition parties and media, including CHEK's own Rob Shaw, who described the process as the total opposite of what this place, the BC Legislature, is supposed to be. So what happened? Here to make sense of it and why you, as a British Columbian, should be concerned is the leader of the BC Green Party, known on this program as the Philosopher Queen. She is Sonia Furstenau, and this conversation is supported by Shelter Point Single Malt Whiskey, distinctly Vancouver Island, uniquely Shelter Point. So, Sonia, how does legislation normally pass in the BC Legislature, and how did this housing and all these housing bills pass last week?
A couple weeks ago, I was in a grade 4 class, and the kids had just studied how bills become laws in British Columbia.
I should have sat in on that class.
It was amazing how informed these kids were.
Okay.
So there's first reading, that's when the bill's introduced.
Okay.
There's second reading, and that's when all of the MLAs have the opportunity to basically give a speech about the bill, to lay out where they stand on the bill, what they think it's going to do or not do. And then we get to what is the most important phase, and that's committee stage. And at committee stage, the minister is there with their staff, and the members of the legislature, anybody, although we've never seen government caucus do it, but anybody can ask questions of the minister about the bill, about the legislation.
Okay.
And what we've seen from the BC NDP, this is third year in a row, is very significant, big legislation that comes out more than halfway through the fall legislative session. And sometimes these bills are hundreds of pages long, or in the case that we saw in this fall, there were 6 different bills.
Do you read all these bills, by the way?
We have a process. We have staff, so we have policy staff,
Okay.
and they help us go through, and we reach out to a lot of people who know a lot more than us. We really rely on informed experts helping us out, helping us understand. And then we take the questions and we ask the minister the questions.
Democracy in action.
Democracy in action.
Love it.
And it matters for a bunch of reasons. One, it's our job. That's what you're elected to do as a legislator, is you're elected to delve into the bills, the laws that are being made. Number 2, it's the opportunity for the public to go look at the public record in Hansard and find out for themselves, what does this legislation mean?
Okay.
Number 3, it's for the courts. So if the courts are having to make a decision, a judge has to make a decision about a law in BC, they can go to the record of committee stage debate and they can see, oh, this is what was intended in this legislation.
Okay.
So
these 4th graders knew that?
They did.
They should run for
They
office.
were so smart. And then after committee stage.
So that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and you can bring amendments at committee stage.
Okay.
That's when any kind of amendments happen. And then it finishes committee stage and it goes to third reading. And then the lieutenant governor comes in and does her magic nod. And then it's a law.
Got it. Okay.
They knew about the magic nod too, those 4th graders.
So that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's usually done. What happened last week with this transformative housing legislation?
Yeah, that's parliamentary democracy in action. That's how it's supposed to work. What happened last week is the same thing that happened last year and the same thing that happened 2 years ago, was that the government passed a motion that said, we will finish debate on this bill at 3:30 on this date, and on this bill at 4:30, and on this bill at 4:45. And that's called time allocation or closure. So basically ending the debate on the legislation, on the bill, no matter where we're at. So in the case of Bill 44, this transformative housing legislation, they had 20 clauses that hadn't even been looked at yet.
Wow.
No questions asked. It was the same with Bill 36, the health regulation bill. They shut down debate on that when it was only, I think it was less than halfway through, and on forestry legislation the year before that. So we've seen a pattern from the BC NDP introducing bills later in the session and then scrambling for time and running out of time and then blaming the opposition.
So I read that this debate on the housing legislation was basically limited to about half an hour. What is the debate usually like? Like, how long does it usually go?
No, there was much more than half an hour debate on the housing. But the reality of a legislature, of a legislative assembly or a parliament, is that it's supposed to act and exist independent of the executive. The executive is the premier and the cabinet ministers.
Right.
They're the government.
Yeah.
The legislature is the MLAs holding the government accountable on behalf of the public. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to have quite a difference between these two bodies. And what we see over and over again is the executive, the cabinet, and the premier's office saying, actually, we're going to take control of the legislature and we're going to tell you when we finish debate. And this is a real problem for democracy.
What I'm having a hard time understanding, though, is that what the BC NDP government did, or the executive cabinet did, was still within the rules, right? They didn't break the rules. So why are you complaining if everything is above board?
It's within the rules, but it doesn't make for strong democratic process.
Okay.
And so, yes, there's that capacity for closure. In the 1970s, the first time the federal government invoked closure, it was front page news across the country.
Right.
Like, people lost their minds. Like, democracy is broken.
Yeah.
Right? In this case, what we're seeing from the NDP is an unwillingness to just let the opposition parties do the job that they were elected to do. Ask lots of questions, ask hard questions. And if you're not getting good answers, or in the cases what we saw on Bill 44, where Adam Olson, my colleague, said, hey, show us the data, show us the reports, show us the information that you're using to make the case that this bill upzoning any municipality over 5,000 people is actually going to result in lower house prices and more affordability. And they said, we have that data, but we're not going to show it to you until after the legislation is passed.
Oh, that's a great way to win a debate, I guess.
I guess.
Now, Minister Kahlon did say that he consulted with the opposition parties and the one independent MLA. So you were consulted. Yeah,
you would. If you want to watch some riveting Hansard television, you can look back on Wednesday when Minister Kahlon made the case that he'd tried to reach consensus with the opposition parties. And it turns out he talked to Bruce Banman, the one conservative House leader, who said, no, I'm not interested in working. And then he said, well, it can't have consensus. It's done. And he didn't actually talk to the other House leaders. He didn't talk to Adam Olson or to Todd Stone. And so both of them raised points of privilege saying he misled the House.
Yeah.
Because he said something that just basically wasn't true.
I want to end really quickly on this note, because people will look at this and say, well, you know what? The BC NDP have basically a supermajority in the BC legislature anyway. This legislation would pass. The net result would be the same. So why are you complaining?
Again, it's back to process. It's about having that on the record, on Hansard, in the public debate, all of the questions that have been raised, not just by opposition members, raised by the public, raised by our constituents, raised by experts, having those questions answered so that we are passing bills that everybody can understand the intention and the outcomes that we're trying to get with these laws. In this case, this government is making a case that these bills will make housing more affordable. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find the evidence that that's what's going to happen.
Very interesting. Sonia Furstenau, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Always a pleasure, and happy to talk about parliamentary democracy anytime.
No, I think it's very important.
I'm
like
not
you said,
kidding.
In a bygone era, this would have been front page news. So I appreciate that we're able to chat about this, and you explained it very clearly. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Folks, the leader of the BC Greens, she is Sonia Furstenau. Now, we will be recording some overtime with Sonia, so be sure to find This is VANCOLOUR wherever you listen to your podcast to listen to that.
The different standard that women are held to, the way that they're judged for how they look, how they dress, how they speak, all these things, it is real.
So you think Andrew Weaver's criticism of you is rooted in sexism?
I think that's part of it.
And thank you to Shelter Point Single Malt Whiskey for supporting local conversations. Now, after some business, Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre had a video go viral last week, and I got some thoughts up next.